This video is about relative clauses and how they're used in complex sentences. I have a friend who works as an architect. And he lives in a house that is 200 years old. I have a friend. In this sentence, we follow a standard word order for a statement. Number 1 or subject is I, number 2 verb or predicate is have, and number 3 is the object, a friend. And the second sentence, he works as an architect, follows the same pattern. Number 1, he, number 2, works, number 3, as an architect. So what will happen if we put these two sentences together? I have a friend plus he works as an architect. He goes away and in its place comes the pronoun who. And as a result we have a complex sentence with a relative clause, I have a friend who works as an architect. A complex sentence is a structure where we have several subjects, several predicate groups. Basically, it's like 1, 2, 3 plus 1, 2, 3 pattern. In this particular sentence, who becomes number 1 or the subject of a relative clause. And the relative clause here is who works as an architect, which is dependent on the main clause, I have a friend. So, he lives in the house. We see the same 1, 2, 3 structure. Number 1, he. Number 2, lives. Number 3, in the house. And the second sentence, it is 200 years old. Number 1, it. Number 2, is. And number 3, 200 years old. And let's put these two sentences together. He lives in the house plus it is 200 years old. It goes away and in its place comes the pronoun that. And as a result we have a complex sentence, he lives in a house that is 200 years old. And again we have the structure 1, 2, 3 plus 1, 2, 3, in which the relative pronoun that becomes the number 1 of the relative clause. The relative clause is here that is 200 years old. And the main clause is he lives in a house. What is the difference between that and who? For example, he lives in a house that is 200 years old, and the sentence I have a friend who works as an architect. You see that the word that is connected with the word house and actually denotes the house. So we use the pronoun that when we speak about a thing, not a person. And in this case, you can also say which. So you can say he lives in a house that is 200 years old, or he lives in a house which is 200 years old. The pronoun who is connected with the word friend. And friend means a person, so we use the pronoun who when we talk about a person. When we talk about a person, the pronoun that is also possible, but who is preferable. More examples, repeat after me. This is the car that I bought. This is the car which I bought. I remember the man who sold it to me. I remember the man that sold it to me. Did you like the film that we watched yesterday? Yes, and I really liked the guys who you came with. We watched the film yesterday. So we see here the same structure. We is number 1 or subject, watched number 2, verb or predicate, and the film yesterday is number 3, object or object group. And let's take the question part. Did you like the film? In which we have the structure of a question, general question, where we put did before number one, before the subject. And let's put it all together. We watched the film yesterday, plus the question, did you like the film? And as a result, we have a complex sentence, did you like the film that we watched yesterday, in which two clauses are connected with the help of the pronoun that. So the relative clause is that we watched yesterday, which is introduced with the help of the pronoun that. And please pay attention that the question actually goes to the main clause, which will begin with the auxiliary did, and the relative clause has a standard 1, 2, 3 structure of a statement. So altogether, did you like the film that we watched yesterday? I like the film that we watched yesterday. He lives in a house that is 200 years old. So what is the difference between these two statements? And the difference is quite significant. In the first sentence, we is number one, we is the subject. But in the second sentence, that is number one. And this is really very important, you will see now why. In the first sentence, that becomes an object because we're talking about the film. And in the second sentence, that is the subject. And if that is the object, we can remove it from the sentence, which we can never do with the subject. Subject is never taken out of the sentence. So you can say in both ways. You can say, I like the film that we watched yesterday, or I like the film we watched yesterday without that. The object pronoun can be omitted, which never happens with the subject that. He lives in a house that is 200 years old, only this variant, and the subject that is never omitted. Now let's take a look at the pronoun who. I like the guys who you came with. And let's compare it with the sentence, I have a friend who works as an architect. So the same thing about omitting the pronoun happens with who. In the first sentence, who is the object, and in the second sentence, who is the subject. So you can remove the object who from the sentence, but never remove the subject who from the sentence. So you can say, I like the guys who you came with, or I like the guys you came with, omitting object pronoun. But in the second sentence, only one variant is possible. I have a friend who works as an architect. There is one more interesting thing about who. When who is the object and used with a preposition, you can say with whom. For example, I like the guys with whom you came, but it's not very often used right now because it sounds very formal. Look what happens now with a preposition. So the preposition goes to the end of the sentence and whom is changed into who. I like the guys who you came with. The woman who is sitting near the window is our teacher. And the subject that she teaches us is maths. The woman who is sitting near the window is our teacher. And the subject that she teaches us is maths. The structure of complex sentences here is a little bit different. Here we have a relative clause inside the main clause. The main clause, the woman is our teacher. So number one, the woman, number two is number three, our teacher. But the relative clause is inside the main clause. Who is sitting near the window? Who is number one, is sitting number two, and number three near the window. And the same thing with the second sentence. The subject that she teaches us is maths. The main clause, the subject is maths, and the relative clause, that she teaches us. And we see that is the object pronoun, so we can remove it. And we can also say the subject she teaches us is maths without that. There are also relative clauses which are introduced with the help of other question words, for example, where, whose, when. Repeat after me. The hotel where we stayed last year is now closed. I didn't see the man whose car is parked here. It was the time when everything seemed so easy to us. Or you can say, it was the time everything seemed so easy to us.